Have you ever found yourself in a room full of people, surrounded by the buzz of conversation and the warmth of laughter, yet felt an invisible wall between you and everyone else? It's a strange and profound kind of ache, a loneliness that feels loudest not in silence, but in a crowd. You might look around and see connections happening everywhere, easy smiles, knowing glances, shared jokes, and wonder, what is the secret language they are all speaking? Why does it feel like you're listening to a beautiful piece of music, but you're standing outside the concert hall, only able to hear the muffled notes through the glass? If this feeling resonates with you, know that you are not alone in this experience. In fact, this feeling might just be the quiet signature of a soul uniquely capable of the deepest forms of friendship. There is a quiet paradox at the heart of human connection, one that we rarely speak of. Often, the people who are most capable of being extraordinary friends are the very ones who have spent the most time feeling profoundly lonely. The soul best suited for true companionship is often the one that has learned to navigate the vast, quiet landscapes of its own inner world. This sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? Surely, the person who is a natural at friendship would be the social butterfly, the one who moves through gatherings with effortless grace, collecting friends like flowers in a meadow. How could the skills for profound connection possibly lead to periods of isolation? Yet, there is a fundamental tension, a deep and often irreconcilable conflict between the qualities that allow us to succeed in the fast-paced world of surface-level socializing and the attitudes required to cultivate the slow, patient, and deeply vulnerable art of true friendship. Let's step into a scene together. Imagine it's a Friday night, and you've been invited to what seems like the perfect party. The room is bathed in a warm, ambient light. Charming people are clustered in small groups, their laughter echoing like wind chimes. You see hands waving from across the room, glasses clinking in celebratory toasts. The music is just right, the wine is flowing, and a few brave souls have already started to dance. Now, let's imagine you walk into this room not just as a guest, but as a seeker. You've arrived with a quiet, deep-seated longing for a genuine meeting of minds, a true communion of souls. How, exactly, would you fare in this environment? When you're introduced to someone new, your instinct might be to truly see them. You might want to ask them about their childhood, their secret fears, the small, irrational habits that make them who they are, the hidden knots of anxiety or joy that live inside their heart. You want to understand the architecture of their inner world, to touch upon the bedrock of their joys and their sorrows. This, in essence, is the very foundation of friendship. But here, in the context of this party, a bustling marketplace of modern social etiquette, this desire can feel radical, almost insane. The people here, for the most part, are looking for a temporary escape from the weight of their own inner worlds, not an invitation to excavate them with a stranger. If you were to gently probe with questions of such depth, you might see a flicker of panic in their eyes before they politely excuse themselves to find a lighter conversation partner. Similarly, if you were to open up about your own inner landscape with the same raw honesty you crave from others, you might find yourself quickly labeled as intense or perhaps just strange. Imagine beginning a heartfelt monologue about how a family holiday to the coast when you were 15 fundamentally changed your perspective on life, or how a recent heartbreak has left you feeling adrift and questioning the very person you thought you were. These are the sacred, vulnerable stories that build the bridges of friendship. But in the fleeting, transactional economy of a party, they are often too heavy a currency. You would likely be met with a polite but vacant smile, branded as a bit much, before you've even reached the core of your story. Real friendship requires time. It needs space for pauses, for reflection, for the slow, meandering exploration of thoughts and feelings. But in the world of surface socializing, the most successful players are often the quickest, the sharpest, the wittiest. They are the ones with the instant punchline, the clever anecdote that perfectly fills an awkward silence. A person with a soulful disposition, on the other hand, will often and rightly so be hesitant. They may stumble even before the simplest of questions. Consider the query, "So, how are you?" For a person attuned to their inner world, there is a dizzying gap between what the questioner is likely prepared to hear and the complex, layered truth of their present state. The real answer isn't, "Fine, thanks." The real answer is, "Well, today I spent 2 hours staring out the window, feeling a low hum of anxiety I couldn't name, and I kept thinking about my 8th birthday party and the way my aunt looked at me when." An honest answer requires a moment to form. It needs to be carefully drawn up from the deep well of the self. But by the time you've gathered your thoughts, the other person has often moved on, perhaps to the snack table, leaving you in a wake of polite impatience. This is why the person who yearns for deep friendship often finds themselves choosing to stay home. The very qualities that make you, in theory, a magnificent friend are the same ones that can make you feel profoundly unsuited for the game of casual social interaction. It's not that you are antisocial. It's that the common form of social life on offer doesn't create a space for the kind of interaction your soul actually craves. Being alone, in the quiet sanctuary of your own space, can feel infinitely less lonely than being in a crowded room where you have to perform a version of yourself that feels hollow. If this idea of the lonely friend is already sparking a new perspective for you, take a moment to subscribe to Mind Decode Explained. We journey through these intricate landscapes of the mind together, exploring the hidden truths of our emotional lives, not with judgment, but with curiosity and compassion. Gently, and often without our realizing it, the very experience of social dislocation begins to shape our character in ways that will, in time, make us exceptional friends. Those long periods of solitude, whether chosen or imposed, become an unplanned apprenticeship in self-knowledge. They force us to become archaeologists of our own minds, to dig through the layers of our own thoughts, memories, and emotions. This is a journey that the perpetually busy, the effortlessly social, rarely have the opportunity to take. The insights gathered during these quiet hours, the musings on life, the wrestling with difficult truths, the quiet discovery of what truly moves you accumulate into a rich inner treasure. This becomes the profound gift you will one day be able to share with a kindred spirit. Your perspective on art, on politics, on love, on failure, has been uniquely forged in the quiet furnace of your own company. You develop your own voice, your own convictions, a sturdy independence of thought. You become a person with substance, a character burnished and deepened by solitude. One of the common misconceptions we must gently dismantle is the idea that lonely people are somehow antisocial, or that they simply don't like other people. This couldn't be further from the truth. It is not people they dislike. It is the performance. It is the superficiality, the pressure to wear a mask of breezy indifference when their inner world is a symphony of complex feeling. They don't crave less connection. They crave a connection of a much higher quality. Theirs is a rejection of the shallow end of the pool, born from a deep and abiding desire to swim in the ocean. The psychologist Carl Rogers spoke of congruence, the state of being where our inner feelings and our outer expression are aligned. A person who has spent time in solitude often develops a powerful need for this kind of authenticity. The discomfort they feel in superficial settings is the pain of incongruence, the strain of pretending to be someone they are not. This very discomfort is a sign of their integrity. This deep-seated need for authenticity is precisely what makes them such a reliable and trustworthy friend. When they finally do connect with someone, that connection is built on a foundation of solid rock, not shifting sand. They won't tell you what they think you want to hear. They will tell you the truth, spoken with the kindness that comes from knowing the weight of difficult feelings. They won't abandon you when things get complicated or messy, because they have already spent countless hours navigating the complicated, messy landscapes of their own soul. They are not afraid of silence. In fact, they understand that a shared silence between two people can be more intimate than 1,000 empty words. They have learned to listen not just to the words being said, but to the feelings simmering beneath them. This is a skill honed in the quiet, when the only voice they had to listen to was their own. Let's return to our party scene, but this time, let's look at it through the lens of the great American painter, Edward Hopper. His 1914 painting Soir Bleu, which translates to Blue Evening, perfectly captures this paradox. In it, several figures are gathered on a cafe terrace at dusk. There is a clown in full white makeup, a soldier, a bourgeois couple, a gaunt intellectual, a sex worker. They are all physically together, sharing the same space, yet each one is profoundly isolated, lost in their own world. The clown, Pierrot, sits with a cigarette, his face a mask of painted melancholy. He is a performer, meant to be the life of the party, yet he seems the most solitary of all. This painting is a masterful depiction of being alone in a crowd. Now, which character do you think is best equipped for true friendship? Is it the charming couple, engaged in their own private bubble? Is it the confident soldier? Or is it the lonely clown, the one whose entire being seems to speak of a deep and unseen inner life? The person who has felt like that clown at the party, the observer, the outsider, the one who feels everything just a little too deeply is the one who has been unknowingly training for the Olympics of empathy. The experience of loneliness carves out a space within us. At first, this space can feel like a painful void, an emptiness we desperately try to fill with noise, with distraction, with anything to avoid facing it. This is where another common misconception arises, that loneliness is a personal failure, a sign that we are somehow broken or unlovable. We must reframe this. Loneliness is not a verdict on your worth. It is a signal. It is a biological and psychological alarm bell, as fundamental as hunger or thirst. It is your soul's way of telling you that a core human need for authentic, meaningful connection is not being met. As the pioneering attachment theorist John Bowlby established, our need for secure bonds with others is wired into our very DNA, essential for our survival and well-being. The ache of loneliness is simply the pain of that need going unanswered. It is a compass pointing you not towards being more social, but towards being more authentic in your search for connection. When you learn to sit with that feeling, to listen to what it is trying to tell you, something remarkable begins to happen. The void of loneliness slowly transforms into the sanctuary of solitude. You begin to furnish that inner space not with fear, but with curiosity. You read books that speak to you. You listen to music that moves you. You think thoughts that are entirely your own. You become your own companion, and in doing so, you develop an unshakable understanding of what it feels like to be human in all its messy, beautiful complexity. This self-knowledge cultivates a profound capacity for empathy. You can recognize the quiet loneliness in someone else's eyes because you have seen it reflected in your own mirror. You can offer a space of non-judgmental acceptance to another person because you have finally learned to offer it to yourself. The research of social scientist Brené has brought the concept of vulnerability into the heart of our modern understanding of connection. She famously states that vulnerability is not weakness. It is our most accurate measure of courage. It is the birthplace of joy, creativity, belonging, and love. And who understands vulnerability better than the person who has felt the acute sting of being on the outside looking in? The person who has risked showing a small, true piece of themselves at a party only to be met with blank stares? Their loneliness is the scar tissue from past moments of vulnerable courage. But it doesn't make them stop being courageous. It makes them wiser about where and with whom they share their vulnerability. So, how does this lonely soul, this person so richly equipped for friendship, finally find it? The breakthrough happens when they change the goal. The goal is no longer to be liked by everyone at the party. The goal is no longer to become the social butterfly. The goal becomes much simpler and much more profound: to find the other lonely person in the room. It's about scanning the crowd not for the loudest laugh, but for the quietest eyes. It's about seeking out the person standing by the bookshelf, or the one looking out the window, the one who also seems to be listening to a different song than the one that's playing. It is about having the courage to approach the other clown. And when you do, the conversation that unfolds is different. It doesn't start with, "What do you do?" It might start with a shared observation, something quiet and true. "This music makes me feel nostalgic for some reason." Or, "There's something beautiful about the way the streetlights look from this window." It's an invitation, not a performance. It's an opening of a small door into your inner world, to see if they might want to open one of theirs in return. The connection, when it happens, feels less like a firework display and more like the slow, quiet dawn. It's built on small moments of shared authenticity, a shared glance of understanding when someone says something superficial, a shared, comfortable silence. A conversation that meanders into the early hours of the morning, touching on dreams and fears and the strange, funny, heartbreaking business of being alive. This is the alchemy of true friendship. It takes two people who have understood the landscape of loneliness and who can recognize that same geography in each other. They don't need to fill every moment with chatter, because they are not afraid of what they will find in the silence. Their bond is not based on shared activities, but on a shared way of being. They offer each other the rarest of gifts, the freedom to be completely, unapologetically themselves. The lonely person becomes the best friend because they know the immense value of this gift. They have lived a life where they felt they had to hide parts of themselves to be accepted. So when they find someone with whom they can be whole, they cherish that connection with the fierce loyalty of someone who has found an oasis in a desert. So, if you are someone who has felt this deep ache of loneliness, if you have felt like an outsider at the feast of life, I want you to consider a different story. What if your loneliness has not been a sign of your inadequacy, but rather the training ground for your greatest capacity? What if all those quiet hours, all those moments of feeling misunderstood, have been cultivating in you a depth, an empathy, and an authenticity that makes you uniquely prepared for the kind of friendship that can truly nourish a human soul? The world doesn't need more people who are good at parties. It needs more people who are good at being human. It needs more people who have the courage to be vulnerable, the patience to listen deeply, and the wisdom to know that the most profound connections are often whispered, not shouted. Your journey through the valleys of loneliness has not been a detour. It has been the very path that leads to the summit of true connection. You have learned the language of the heart in solitude, and you will recognize it when you hear it spoken by another. Let's look one last time at Hopper's painting, Soir Bleu. We no longer need to see it as a portrait of despair. Instead, let's see it as a moment of profound potential. A gathering of souls, each waiting. The lonely clown, Pierrot, is not tragic. He is ready. He is waiting for someone to look past the painted smile past the costume, and see the real person underneath. He is waiting for someone who understands that the most interesting stories are never the loudest ones. Your loneliness has not been a curse. It has been the quiet, patient artist, shaping a soul capable of the very connection you so deeply seek. And when you find it, it will feel like coming home.